I believe it's pronounced more better, actually. Good evening, everyone. I'm very excited about this tonight. I'm very excited Susan is here. So here's my introduction. Susan Howe is a writer I discovered in a moment of frustration with some structural monster I'd come to fear as the anthologizer and embalmer of all poetry. I had been hunting for some time in hopes of discovering a trail leading back or away from where I found myself. While I could imagine what it meant, I couldn't imagine what a poetics would look like that embodied what it is actually like to read poetry. Having studied the academic subject poetry for several years, even venturing outside the university at one point to seek answers, I had come to the end of my rope, or thread. In a class last semester with Mr. Charles Bernstein, I discovered the essay, These Flames and Generosities of the Heart, Howe's piece on her Emily Dickinson research for her book, My Emily Dickinson, and on her struggles to excavate Dickinson's writing from catacombs of poetic domestication. The essay was dislocating, invigorating, full of curl and flourish, antinomian by way of earnest scholarship, fearless about its own audacity, and ruefully aware of its own position in the Academy's cacophony. It was the first time in a long time that I'd seen the form of a text enact its own argument in a new and genuine way. It was an energetic spread on the page, which carried out this debate on two edges at once, within and against the laws of language, within and against the ossification of history. I'll admit, I also liked the anger in this fiercely intelligent writing. It was a relief to encounter a genuine reaction, particularly one so exhaustively researched and felt. Howe didn't sterilize her text or cut her identity out of it. She was willing to have a real voice behind her opinions. She seemed prepared to make demands for honesty, or at least to reach toward honesty within her demands. One of the things I respect the most in Miss Howe's work is the facility with which she allows herself to show through the seams of her historical stitchings. The courage I so respect in her project is not relegated to the flames of scholarly debate, but shows particularly in works like The Midnight, a book which enacts that long-hushed truth that an individual's liminal history of sentiment and relationship is integral to an understanding of all history and enriches both halves of the equation. Everyone knows, in a rough way, the impious history of sensation, she writes in the section Bed Hangings 1. Howe's work helps us relive this impious history, even if we cannot at first remember it. It is a history of America, of literature, and of her family. These elements take a shape when laced together, which can exist only when imbued with Howe's intellectual energy, her willingness to enter the work without dividing lines between the words themselves and the memories she retraces. Despite her stance, one foot in the forgotten histories of the word and one dug into the dirt of New England, I'd hesitate to declare Howe's practice a new sort of historical research or a new sort of poetics. Although certainly both these titles are applicable to an extent, there is something which happens in her work which I cannot explain, and which resists a categorization like post-structural or new historical. In the scrutiny of detail and Frankensteinian resurrection of lost histories, the page becomes a space which vibrates with energy, as if Howe had truly summoned some ghost. The momentum of her work can feel a little like sleight of hand, and I find myself suddenly chilled with excitement in the midst of a passage about the trade history of lace. I wonder how this text, stitched together with the leavings and reminders of history, could manage this raw power. Perhaps, or certainly, my reaction to the writing has to do with the eerie sense that my own history was somehow being invoked. The retracing of Irish ancestry, a theatrical mother, the childhood of abridged Shakespeare productions for relatives, and the ambivalent relationship with the university. All these felt spectrally, unsettlingly close to home. But this very unsettling quality, I think, transcends any arbitrary personal similarities. Rather, it is achieved in the structure of Miss Howe's thought and the organization of her text, the series of patterns she generates only to undermine them, as if to remind the reader that her story, her histories, are constantly vying with form for the teleological center of her work. In the work of this fellows' seminar this past semester, Susan Howe has arrived at the right moment to lead us forward, then sideways, to a historicist scansion of skew. As I prepare to leave this university and pursue this academic beast called poetry, or not, her writing feels strangely prescient. In the close readings of the classroom, interactions with the text have testified to the resilient energy of Howe's work. The time spent with this work in the seminar has been wonderfully intimate, for to engage with these texts is somehow to make their stitchings and codes your own. Even when met with resistance, the trails of text cannot help but lead the reader somewhere, which seems as true a description of history as any I've heard. I'm pleased to introduce Susan Howe.